Welcome. Wait a second.
Anything in the corner, just leave.
We're here. This is the North and South Rock and Metal Connection meets the 5 Count W.A.S.P Wednesday. John Clouser, Johnny Metal, the Metal Dad, and this is an all-star panel I got going on tonight. I'm loving this. So I've got three of the four other North and South Rock and Metal Connection guys. I got the brothers Carson, Ben and Jason. We got Roger Serrers from the Great White North, who's with his hood sweater on. It's making me kind of sweat a little bit because it's like 100 degrees down here.
How do you think I feel? I'm lifting heavy stuff.
Ooh.
I'm the muscle.
And then from my 5 Count W.A.S.P Wednesday, folks, John the Music Nut. This is the first time we brought all these guys together. John, how you doing, brother?
Doing great. It's great to be on a show with you guys. I've been watching your shows and having a lot of fun watching them, and it's great to be on a show together. I love it.
This is really awesome. I'm glad we've got everybody to do this. I feel bad that JD can't be here with us tonight. But yes, I'm going to raise a Coke to you tonight because I'm drinking something heavier than water. So tonight we are going to do a kind of a discussion, a little discussion here on the passings of wrestling legends Terry Funk and Bray Wyatt. Terry Funk, we all knew, was getting up there. He wasn't looking too good in the last pictures we saw of him. So it was still a little bit of a surprise to see him pass away. And then the next day we see the news of Bray Wyatt suddenly leaving us, which shocked a lot of people, shocked the wrestling world. Very, very somber last couple of days. And then for us music folks, we lost Bernie Marsden of formerly of Whitesnake from the original Whitesnake band.
What? No.
Yes. And then in the entertainment world, we said goodbye to Bob Barker today too. So, but we're only going to focus on Terry Funk and Bray Wyatt. So, Roger, I know you said you needed to kind of move along. So you just kind of joined us on here real quick. So we're just going to say you can either pick one or both and just maybe talk about what they meant to you, maybe a favorite match or a favorite moment, and we'll let you have at it.
I'll pick to do both because I've been watching wrestling since I was like, I don't know, a baby. Anyway, so Terry Funk, my favorite Terry Funk memory is the crazy, I don't know. See, it's the barbed wire match. That crazy, was it a 4-way or triple threat? I can't remember. But it was the first ever.
Are you talking the ECW one?
You are correct.
That was with Sabu and
RVD.
No, I don't think it was RVD.
I can't remember who it was.
I don't know. I don't think it was Shane Douglas, but
Raven?
Might have been Sandman.
Could have been.
I think it was Tommy Dreamer.
I don't know. It was somebody.
Yeah, it was a crazy match.
Somebody decided to tear their bites up in the middle of the match.
Yeah,
that was Sabu.
That was Sabu, and he literally taped it up.
Yep. And all that crazy stuff with the New Age Outlaws. I don't even want to get into all the crazy Japan stuff.
King of the Death Match.
He literally created a genre. Pretty much, him and Onada. I have a bunch of friends that, do death match wrestling, so I can only imagine how painful that guy was at the end. But Bray Wyatt, let's see. I went to a Raw a few years ago when the Wyatt family was, doing their stuff. And, well, I had a much bigger beard than this. And all I kept getting yelled at was like, "You look like Bray Wyatt. Wyatt family. Wyatt family." It literally happened all night. And seeing his entrance live was amazing. It filled the void of missing the Undertaker's actual entrance. And they should have booked him to be the next Undertaker. He was so creative. The stuff was crazy. The Firefly Funhouse even creeped out my wife, which she hates horror movies. I haven't watched any in 7 years. So that was like me watching horror film. Yeah, it sucks. But that's pretty much all I can
Okay.
say.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, he his that entrance was pretty something when he well, I'll go into mine. I'll go into mine last. John the Music Nut, since you're the other guest, have at it. I'll let you say what you got.
Okay, thanks, John. Bray Wyatt, I didn't see a lot of Bray Wyatt wrestling because in the last several years, I wasn't watching a lot of wrestling until very recently. But I've gone back and watched some of his matches. And what I really respect about him, and I figured out why he had such a great following, is that he was old school in the fact that he was an extension of his real personality. Now, when you look at old school wrestling, these guys were bigger, louder versions of their personality. They didn't have writers. They came up with this stuff on their own. These days, you got a group of writers telling you what to say, writing your promos for you. But when I look at Bray Wyatt, I saw this guy came up with this from his mind. And when I watch his matches and I see the connection that he has with the fans, to me, he's an old school wrestler. He doesn't have the athletic talent of Mike Rotunda and Barry Windham, but he can go for a big guy. His matches were very good. But what he has that they didn't really have is a lot of charisma. He reached out to the fans to the point where they saw something in themselves when they saw Bray Wyatt, because this was just an extension of his personality. Mm-hmm. And you don't see enough of that in wrestling these days. Wrestling fans, we like real. He's real. That's what I got out of him from watching his wrestling, watching his matches, watching his promos. That's what I got out of him. And I've heard all these tributes, whether I'm watching them on YouTube or watching them on the internet, or I'm listening to Busted Open on Sirius XM Fight Nation. And you have wrestlers from all different generations saying so many fantastic things about him. And it's because he created this character that was an extension of himself, and it connected with the audience, much like Mark Calloway did with The Undertaker. So, and they're saying he should be an easy Hall of Famer. After I saw him and did some research the last couple days, I agree, because he captured the fans' imagination. The fact that he's gone now is very sad. That he left a family behind, 4 kids and his wife, and rest in peace to Bray Wyatt. I mean, what a talent. And from everything I've gotten out of what I'm hearing, is a great guy as well. Now, I grew up watching Terry Funk. I was reading about him in magazines, reading about how he was the NWA heavyweight champion from 75 to 77. And back then, the NWA heavyweight champion was a world champion. It wasn't like the WWF, where you wrestled primarily on the East Coast. They traveled to Japan, to Australia, to Canada, all points in between. That's what the NWA champion did. That was the territory days. But you were the best wrestler in the world if you were the NWA champion in the 70s. And the 80s too. So I read about him a lot in magazines, but when I first saw him start wrestling was when he came to the WWF with his brother Dory Jr. in '85. And he had a great match with Hulk Hogan on one of the first Saturday Night main events. It may have been even the first Saturday Night's main event. I know it's from the original season from '85. I remember he came out and he was wrestling an enhancement talent guy. He came out with his cowboy hat on and his branding iron. And back then, Mel Phillips was the ring announcer. And Mel Phillips put his cowboy hat on, and Terry beat the shit out of him.
Oh,
Yes, I remember
wore
that.
him out.
Yes, I
Ripped him
remember
back
that.
in the ring.
He beat up the talent and he beat up Mel Phillips. And I was like, whoa, this guy's crazy. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
You go ahead. I was just gonna say he always protected his gimmick. Always.
Absolutely. And so I saw him back then having good matches with the Junkyard Dog, carrying the Junkyard Dog, let's be honest, and having good matches with Hulk Hogan and tagging up with his brother Dory against Junkyard Dog and Tito Santana. When I saw him next was in the NWA when Ric Flair won the NWA championship for a 5th time against Ricky Steamboat, and Terry was one of the judges at ringside. And then Terry came in the ring and challenged him. And then when Ric Flair said he had to earn his spot, get back, I only fight guys in the top 10. I'm going out defending the title. You're going out and you're being in movies, because he was in Over the Top. And then later on, Roadhouse, a movie that anybody of our age, you're a guy, you love Roadhouse. I've watched Roadhouse so many times.
And Over the Top.
And Over the Top. But Roadhouse was on all the time, so you couldn't avoid Roadhouse. And Terry had a pretty decent role in there as one of Brad Wesley's bodyguards, and being a bouncer in the bars. And he was Terry. He was playing a character, but you saw him, you're like, holy shit, it's Terry Funk, right? So he comes back to the NWA, he wants a title shot. Ric Flair won't give it to him, so he beats the shit out of him and gives him a couple pile drivers on the he gave him one on the table.
One on a table, yeah.
That will go down forever as the worst pile driver ever given to somebody.
Boy, I'll say.
He would not give up on that pile driver.
No.
He was slipping and falling all over the place. He would not give up on it.
Oof.
Putting Ric Flair, kayfabe, out of commission for a couple months because Rick needed a break. Because Rick was wrestling like 8 times a week or so. I mean, that's what the NWA champion did. And then he had the angle where the next Clash of Champions, I think he was trying to choke Ric Flair out with a plastic bag, which was crazy to watch back then. And then, of course, the matches he had with Flair, particularly the one at Clash of Champions 9, the I Quit match, when they had brought the microphone into the ring. What a brawl. How many chops did Ric Flair hit Terry with? He must have hit him with like 75 chops in that match.
Boy.
And the thing about Terry was the left hand. The reason it looks so good is because he hit you for real.
Yeah,
and that's
laid it in.
He just let him in. That was him. Great match to watch. Great old school brawl. And those were my biggest memories. And of course, when he came back to ECW later on in his career, when he was in his late 40s, early 50s, and he's doing moonsaults off the top rope. Now think about this guy. When he was fighting Flair, he had a bum leg then, he had a bum knee then. He was barely able to get out of a chair, let alone get in a ring, but he willed himself to do it. He had so many, he loved the business so much. His wife, Vicky, rest in peace, an angel, if there ever was one, because she went through so many retirements with Terry. Terry retired more than Sugar Ray Leonard and Muhammad Ali put together, and then a few. He just kept coming back. His last match, I think he was 73.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as Roger was saying, he kind of invented hardcore wrestling. I mean, which was more of an extension of his style. I mean, he always was a great ground wrestler, but as he got older, he adapted more to his natural brawling style, and he was bringing in the tables and doing the crazy stuff. But he always got over with the fans. And one thing I heard Jim Cornette say this about him. His whole life, he said, well, wrestling isn't real. He said, well, maybe I can't convince people that wrestling is real, but I can convince them that I'm real. And like Bray Wyatt, he had that connection with the fans.
Yeah, he did.
Most of us, I didn't hate him, but a lot of guys did. He got you so angry that you wanted to get out of the crowd and take a swing at him, which wouldn't have been a good move, but that's how he got to you. He, again, an extension of his real personality. But what I understand, the sweetest guy in the world, when he wasn't near the ring, he talked real lower voice. You can see a lot of his interviews on YouTube, and he's fun to listen to, tell you stories about what he went through coming up in the business and all that. But he was an NWA champion and beat the great Jack Briscoe for it. And he was a hardcore champion, an ECW champion. Him and Dory were over like Rover in Japan. They were heels, but they put asses in the seats. That's what they did.
That they did.
And he was a walking, breathing, living legend until very recently. So Terry Funk, you gave me a lot of great memories. Thank you for that. Rest in peace. And condolences go out to your daughters and to Dory Funk Jr. and the entire Funk family.
That's right. Cool. Thanks, John. That's good stuff.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I have just a quick question, because I'm a huge Terry Funk fan. Do y'all know if there's any footage available on Peacock or anywhere of tag team matches between Terry and Dory Funk Jr. versus Jack and Jerry Briscoe?
I don't,
Because I've always heard that the Funks were two of the toughest, but I've also heard the Briscoes were two of the toughest. I'd like to see some matches between those two, if there's anything out there.
I don't know if the Funks ever went to Florida or not.
They were in Florida.
Yeah, they were in Florida.
I don't know if that footage is available. Maybe there's highlights of matches. I never looked on I have Peacock now, but I never looked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You almost may have to do a YouTube search for that.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking, but it'd be some amazing stuff to watch, I'm sure.
You had four of the baddest men alive there. I mean,
Absolutely.
They were like the Hatfields and the McCoys.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And they were all legit. All of them can go. Great talents. Now I'm gonna have to do a YouTube. I can do a YouTube search later on, but I'm glad you brought that up.
As soon as we get off here, that's probably what I'm going to do.
Go.
All right, brothers Carson. I'll let you pick to see who wants to go first.
Want to go, or you want me to
I'll
go?
go real quick.
Okay.
I'll talk for a little bit. So Terry Funk is a guy my first memories of Terry were obviously in the late 90s in the Attitude Era. Chainsaw Charlie, teaming with Cactus Jack, and just he was always, even up until he finally retired at 73, middle-aged and crazy his whole life. He never seemed to age a day. He just always had this look about him. Never had the best body in wrestling, never had the best technical skills in wrestling. And when he was Chainsaw Charlie and later on, back in ECW and whatnot, he looked like if you saw him on the street, you'd want to give him $5 so he could go get him something to eat or something. But he was this amazing wrestling legend. I mean,
He kind of reminded me of Double A. He looked 45
for
50 years.
Yeah. But he was I said it on Facebook the other day. He is your favorite wrestler's top 5 favorite wrestler.
Yes.
You know,
Yep.
everybody that you look up to looks up to Terry Funk, Harley Race, Dusty Rhodes, Ric Flair, that whole generation.
I mean, that is the Mount Rushmore of professional wrestling right there. Dusty, Rick,
Harley
and Terry.
Yeah. So I feel, you know, my deep condolences and sympathy go out to the Funk family, because he was a trailblazer. The exploding barbed wire death matches in Japan with Cactus, and what Music Nut was saying a while ago, he just had this soft spoken Cactus. I think we really lit him up out there tonight, after he just went through a war of C4 and barbed wire. You know, just this soft spoken is like Yoda watching him fight, you know, Count Dooku, and then he just picks up his cane. That's how Terry Funk was his whole life. And even Foley said, without Terry Funk, there never would have been a Cactus Jack, never would have been a Mankind. All of the hardcore guys, ECW would not have existed had it not been for Terry Funk's work in Japan.
Well, what wasn't ECW actually about to go under when they convinced Terry to come over?
Yeah, and they went from Eastern Championship to Extreme Championship. And I mean, this is a man who didn't have a whole lot of world titles. He was the NWA champion for 2 years, but after that he went after the title several times with Flair, had good matches with Flair, but then he just sort of did his own thing for years. And like John said, he retired a half a dozen times. Part of the movie Beyond the Mat was dedicated to Terry Funk and his retirement match against Bret Hart at a local high school gym or event or something like that. And next thing you know, 6 months later, he's back in the ring again.
Yep.
It's like Ric Flair. He just couldn't let the beast inside, just wouldn't let him let it go.
When you get that passion and you just can't let go, you just can't stop.
Yeah. And it's got to be the cheers of the fans, because there's no way you could just the abuse of bumping in the ring all night can't be that addictive. I've never wrestled, so don't hold me to that. That could be totally untrue.
I think it's the fans, and it's such a big creative outlet for them.
Yeah. But Terry Funk, he was so awesome and unique. And just like with Bray Wyatt, I'm fixing to talk about Bray Wyatt. He just blazed his own trail, and he wasn't a cookie cutter. He wasn't thought up in an office. He wasn't a corporate franchise player. He wasn't manufactured to be in the spotlight. He's just an old boy from Amarillo, Texas, tough as nails, could take bumps all night long, could give bumps all night long, and wouldn't take no for an answer. And that's what made Terry Funk such an icon in the industry.
He wasn't hired because he had big biceps and six-pack abs.
No. You knew if you wanted to have the shock factor, wow moment of the night, you hired Terry Funk. Or if you just wanted somebody who could give Ric Flair 90 minutes without complaining, you hired Terry Funk.
Yeah.
That's right.
But moving on to Bray Wyatt. This is still, I'm still struggling with this a little bit. I was a huge fan of his the Fun House, the Fiend. I thought that was the most, and I told Jason the other day that I thought the Fiend was the biggest shock in the arm that the company has had since Kane debuted in '97. Just the monster that makes fans wonder, is this guy for real or not? You know, he had some bad gimmick matches, but he never seemed to have a bad match. You know, his matches were odd. Yeah, but he was a very creative guy. He wasn't afraid to take those risks. You know, if I want to put a projector of oozing worms on the mat in a WrestleMania match, I'm going to do that. It may not go over, but it might. So I'm going to see. That's how Bray Wyatt thought. It would be cool if we did this. Let's do a House of Horrors match, and in the end, we're going to burn the house down. Let's try that. It could be, might not get over, but it might get over. He was not afraid to take those risks. He was not afraid to express himself and use his love of old, blood and gore cult horror movies as a wrestling persona. Nobody else nobody else wanted to push that envelope because they were afraid it wouldn't get over. They'd get let go. He didn't care. He was going to try it anyway, and he comes from a wonderful wrestling legacy of Blackjack Mulligan, Barry Windham, Mike Rotunda, all of those cats. That's his lineage, He just, Kendall Windham, his uncle, he's born to wrestle, but he wanted to be a little bit different than that legacy. He wanted to, they weren't always considered the best talkers in the business. They were some of the best workers. Everybody from the 80s will say Barry Windham was the best, most natural, fluid wrestler you'll ever see, ever perform.
Until he got stuck with that horrible gimmick in the WWE.
Yeah.
The stalker.
Yeah. But other than that,
I remember that.
Hands down, the best wrestler on the card each and every night. But put him in front of a microphone, he had to have Arn Anderson or Lex Luger or somebody like that do a majority of the talking. But I think Bray, when it came to that, he had this, instead of letting the fans get under his skin and make him nervous, he would flip it and get under their skin and make them a little nervous. And that's where the whole, spinoff of the Waylon Mercer gimmick came from, and then the cult leader and Cape Fear and all that stuff, which later led to the Eater of Worlds, which led to the Firefly Funhouse and the Fiend. And I will forever be grateful that I got to see Bray wrestle earlier this year in early March on a house show loop. Him and LA Knight had a repeat of the Lights Out match from Royal Rumble. And it was right. I mean, this was just like 2 or 3 weeks before he went out with his health issues. And he looked great. I got to see the cool light up door entrance, all of that stuff. It was awesome. He thanked the fans and everything. And it was a really, really special night to see that and to hear that he passed away. 36 is really young, but when the Lord calls you home, the Lord calls you home. You have no say in the matter at all. But he left a legacy behind that people my age and younger will have a hard time ever letting go of. He was our Undertaker. He was the guy he was the bigger than life phenom that we needed after the Undertaker, got older and retired and didn't work as much and whatnot. He filled that void, and I think he was only going to get better. I think the plans were for him to have a new Wyatt family that would lead into him reaching that Undertaker echelon level of just ultimate coolness that they would save for the big matches and the big events. And he was on his way there, and his star was getting ready to go supernova, I think. And I thought it was really fitting that, he won the world title 3 times. Nobody else in his heritage. I think Barry won the world title once, very briefly, in late NWA days, early WCW days. But it wasn't for very long. And he held 3 of them, and he debuted the big blue belt, So I feel very, very emotional about it. And I know I'm babbling all over the place. I'm having a hard time getting through it, but he was an important wrestler to me, and to know that he won't be around anymore is tough, but the show must go on, and my thoughts and prayers go out to the entire Rotunda and Wyndham family. And I know he left babies behind, and I just hope they know how much the world loved their dad.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, Jason, what you got?
Bray and Luke are up in heaven tossing back cold ones.
Yeah. They're rocking in their chairs.
Yep, that's it. Well, I feel kind of left out. Everybody here is speaking so eloquently about Bray Wyatt, and I've never seen a single minute of his man's work. I haven't watched professional wrestling since 2004, 2005-ish, other than a WrestleMania here and there. I think we've watched the last 2 WrestleManias. I have no idea what's going on in any of them.
Let me put it this way real quick. Bray Wyatt, he could move. He was as strong as Kane, faster and more explosive than Vader for a big man. He was fast, wicked fast, really explosive, very agile, more agile than Vader ever was. And just a phenomenal worker. He could go for a 45-minute match, no problem. And he was such a dude backstage. So I don't agree with John Cena taking the title away from AJ Styles back in 2018, I think is when he did it, 2017. But I do respect the heck out of John Cena for telling the company at the Elimination pay-per-view, said, I want Bray Wyatt to pin me for the title. Because, Elimination Chamber, anybody could pin anybody at the end of it and win it. He said, no, I want to be the last one in, and I want Bray to pin me to win the title. That's how much Bray Wyatt meant to the guys backstage.
Okay.
So I'll pass it back to you now.
Okay. Well, I mean, I've never seen his work. I haven't watched anything modern, and I'm walking through the living room. People are watching it here at the house on Monday nights and whatnot, and I don't really see anything on modern wrestling that just intrigues me. All I see is Roman Reigns, and I think he has the personality of an ironing board. Just saying, y'all can say what you like about it. I don't care. He can't work and he can't talk. John Cena couldn't work, but at least the man could talk. I can't stand Roman Reigns. It is what it is. So we're going to leave the modern aside and go with what I know. I know classic wrestling. You give me old school NWA, I'm all about the Four Horsemen. And I'm all about Terry Funk. I love the Funker. Without a doubt, we've all said it. One of the very few true legends in this business. The man had no quit. He had no reverse. He just kept barreling ahead. Wasn't the greatest worker, but he could outwork everybody because he just didn't quit. I mean, you might be a better technical performer, but where you're given 45 minutes, he'll go out and he'll give 90. You're just not going to outwork him. We've all talked about our favorite memories. I mean, there is the memory in ECW that sticks out in everybody's mind of him and Mick Foley in the middle of their match calling for chairs, and every chair in their arena winds up in the ring.
That was huge. That was big stuff.
I mean, that is what makes legends right there. That's what makes legends. But I believe when I think of Terry Funk, I think of the empty arena match between Terry Funk and Jerry Lawler. I mean, it takes two really amazing performers to do a completely unscripted, call it in the ring, old school match like that without an audience. Because you're protecting the business, you're protecting yourself, you're protecting your opponent, and you're protecting your calls because you don't have the crowd to hide behind to give the call to your opponent.
Mm-mm.
How do you do that when there's nobody there?
That match is what gave birth to what All Elite calls the Stadium Stampede matches now.
So, I mean, it goes to show the caliber of performer that Terry Funk was, but also at the same time, how good the comical Jerry Lawler, because Ben's generation and forward, all they know Jerry Lawler from is sitting behind the bench, behind the desk at WWE. They don't know what he did in Memphis.
He was vicious.
That man was a beast.
Yeah, he was.
He
No
earned
question.
that title, the King. They can call Harley Race the King all they want to. And Harley Race is a legit toughest guy that's ever lived. But Jerry Lawler
No.
earned
That he was one of the toughest men that ever walked on God's great earth.
That's it.
Got to say it right. But yeah, I mean, the meager words that I can say here tonight will never do justice to the legend that is Terry Funk. But I mean, if anybody who happens to watch this show does not know what Terry was capable of doing, just go on Peacock or go on YouTube and look at some of the matches that don't get the publicity. You know, look at some of the ECW stuff. Yeah, because it's all cool, it's hardcore and all. But look before that, look at the empty arena match or any of the matches that he had with Flair, you know, where Terry wasn't going hardcore, but he was going the Terry Funk, you know, one half of the Funk brothers. You know, I mean, Terry always said Dory was the tough one of the group. I'd hate to get in the ring with Dory Funk Jr. myself, if that's the case. But
I think Dory was NWA champion in the late 60s.
Dory Funk Jr. he held it more times than Terry, and I believe one of the two Johns here can correct me if I'm wrong. Ric Flair won was it his first or was it his second NWA championship from Dory Funk Jr.?
He didn't beat Dory Funk Jr. Dory Funk was champion from 69 to 73 before I think Harley Race beat him.
Okay, for some reason I was thinking Rick won it from Dory at one point in time.
No, he beat
I think he beat Harley Race for the first time, I think.
I know it'd be yeah. Okay. And okay, all right. Well, I'm totally off then.
he never beat a Funk for a heavyweight title.
Yeah.
But he beat the Funk several times though, because he beat Terry for it a few times.
After the Chi-Town Rumble, there was the Starcade after that. He fought Terry Funk.
Right. Okay. Anyway, forgive me.
Right.
It's been a very
you're
long
good.
day.
Oh,
But,
I know that feeling.
Very long day. But yeah, I mean, I wished I had kind words to say about Bray Wyatt. I really do. I just never watched any of his work, and it's nothing against him whatsoever. I mean, I love the work of his dad and his uncle. I mean, Barry was an incredible worker. And not too long ago, I was watching the first Clash of the Champions, where Iron Mike Rotunda from the University of Syracuse was having a 2 out of 3 collegiate rules match against gorgeous Jimmy Garvin with Precious. And he was Iron Mike was being managed by the games master Kevin Sullivan. Great match. And Iron Mike, of course, went on to do bigger and better things in the WWF as IRS, which, you know, a lot of people have said over the years that Mike didn't have a whole lot of charisma. He did when he became IRS, because he was one extremely nasty heel.
It's probably one of the most, if not the most memorable. No, it's probably the second most memorable golden age mid-card characters there are, right behind Doink the Clown.
Yes. I mean, IRS was just a nasty, nasty gimmick.
Yeah.
And Mike played it perfectly.
Perfectly.
And I mean, we all know what Barry did in the Horsemen. I mean, he had some classics with the Horsemen and against them, because he was a tremendous athlete in his own right, but then you put him in the ring with Flair and put the big gold belt on the line. You might not get good promos out of Barry leading up to it, but you're going to get a hell of a match.
Yep.
Because those two guys could go.
Yep.
They wrestled so many 60-minute draws.
They did. And it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Barry, you know, and if you've ever listened to Stone Cold Steve Austin's old podcast he talked about how he'd walk in the locker room and Barry would be half drunk, smoking a cigarette, never, ever, ever go to the gym, never exercise, never work out, never do anything, and then go out and give a 60-minute draw like it was nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Arn Anderson said the same thing. He said back in the NWA days, he never went to the weight room. Arn was in there every morning for 2 hours religiously every morning. Barry never once set foot in the weight room, but was twice as strong as Arn was, and had cardio that would never quit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy.
He's just a natural.
He was a freak.
Literally.
He was a freak of nature. But I mean, he was something else. And
yep.
I mean, I'm gonna have to go back and for no other reason just to watch some of Bray's stuff so I can see it, because I mean I've seen clips here and there of little bits and pieces that he did, you know, on TikTok. You know, I've seen stuff there, but
his debut Fiend match was at SummerSlam 2019, I think, or somewhere in that. I think it was 2019 SummerSlam. He fought Finn Balor at SummerSlam, and he debuted the Fiend, and the entire crowd was speechless.
Yeah.
It's rare that when the music stops, there's no applause or cheers or boos or roars. It's just like, whoa. And then they start up, you know, a holy shit chant. And it's just, he instantly captivated the Barclays Center just like that. All eyes were on him. What?
That was actually in my country, buddy. That was in Toronto.
My apologies. I thought it was that string of 10 years where they did SummerSlam at Barclays every year.
That was actually the first year, I believe, they broke that thing.
Well, we don't count Canada.
I do.
Oh,
Hey,
jeez.
I kid. One of my all-time favorites is Canadian.
If
I
you're
love
going
it.
to say Bret Hart, I'll leave again because I hate him.
Dude, I love Bret. I do. I mean, He was such a good worker.
I'm an edgehead.
Oh man.
I'm old school like that. I love Brett.
Hey, nothing wrong with
I
that.
did too until I waited 6 hours for his autograph and he drove off.
Oh wow.
I
Ouch.
would hate him
Okay.
too.
All
And
right.
in the freezing rain. I'm
I
sorry.
would hate him
Welcome
too.
back.
Did you walk uphill both ways in the freezing rain?
Oh boy.
Is that some
Uh,
kind of stealth thing?
Maybe.
Yeah, it's a South thing.
Yeah.
All right.
Metal Dad.
Dude, well, Jason,
Please.
that was a lot of good stuff there. So let me go ahead and I'm gonna let me finish it off with some
Yes,
thoughts.
absolutely.
So
I'm talking too much.
no, you're good. So for me with Terry Funk, my introduction to him was almost essentially tied into when I first was introduced to wrestling in general. I had a friend, haven't seen him in 40 years, but I still think of him as one of my great friends, even though like I said, distance has kept us apart. But he was the one that introduced me to wrestling. His name is Bill, and he was a couple years older than me. And living in Pennsylvania, so yeah, we got to know WWF stuff. But he was getting all the wrestling magazines. He was getting the Wrestler and Inside Wrestling and Pro Wrestling Illustrated and stuff like that. So whenever I'd go over to his house, I'd get to look through some of these magazines. And there was one that I gravitated to for whatever reason. I don't know why, but I gravitated to this one particular one. And it had an article where it talked about Terry Funk versus Abdullah the Butcher. And was this the most bloodiest match of all time? Now, keep in mind, this is 1979. So obviously we can, I think there's been a lot more bloodbaths since then.
Poor Bruiser Brody. Yeah.
So this
79 was
but this was like the magazine came out in like February 79. So this was probably something taped in, or this was probably a 78 match, but it was a match from Japan. And so, where Terry was huge, as was Abdullah. And then you put these two together and it's just mayhem, because, you see pictures of, they had a lot of matches together in Japan, Abdullah's like trying to carve him up with the pencil or the fork or a screwdriver, and Terry's just trying to do whatever he can to fight off this maniac. Well, of course, those two would just, it just would become an absolute bloodbath after a while. So that's really where I first learned about Terry Funk, and it intrigued me because I'm like, wow, what is this like? How comes I can't see this kind of thing on TV? The closest I would probably see to somebody bleeding that much was probably when Larry Zbyszko smacked Bruno in the head with the chair, when he turned on Bruno. So, and then you have another incident where, what was it? Bray's grandfather, I guess it would be, or great uncle. How was Blackjack Mulligan to Bray?
That would be his great uncle, because that was Barry's dad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jack Mulligan was Barry and Kendall's dad.
Okay. Right. Okay. So I'm having to get that straightened out. So, right. So you get Blackjack Mulligan, and he had that claw that he would put on, the Von Erich claw kind of thing, but he had that leather glove, and I remember he put on this guy named Barry Hart, who would eventually, I think, become Barry Horowitz.
Correct.
But boy, he put that claw on Barry's head, and next thing you know, you see this big X on the screen because Barry's split wide open. Apparently, there's just blood. He's gushing some blood a little bit, from this claw thing. So, you just didn't see that kind of stuff. So, if I ever wanted to read about these bloodbaths, I only could read about them because I couldn't see them on TV, so I always had that, there was always that mysticism with him and Abdullah. So, fast forward, yeah, you see him in WWE. He's kind of doing a little bit of comedy shtick, but yeah, you get that thing with Mel Phillips where he just destroys him, when Mel Phillips tries to be cute and, kind of does the two-step with the hat on. Yeah, he didn't like that. But but then he gets into NWA. He does that terrible pile driver on the table with Ric Flair. You do all that stuff. He gets into ECW, this 50-something wild-eyed and crazy, doing moonsaults and doing all this hardcore stuff. He gets busted open and he's just like, he looks like he's having a convulsion and, stuff like that as he's trying to bleed out. He sold that stuff so well. Terry was just such a great seller with that when he did all that crazy stuff. But, of course, the Chainsaw Charlie stuff, when Terry Funk got into the ring, after Mick Foley goes through the cage, he gets into the ring, he's trying to help him out, and he goes to Taker and say, all right, choke slam me. What? Choke slam me. Why? Buy Mick some time. So he does,
Okay.
He choke slams him out of his sneakers. Mick comes around and there's what's a sneaker doing here, But that's just what Terry did. He knew how to work the crowd. He knew how to help the people. He could call Dusty Rhodes an egg-sucking dog. But anyway, so sorry, that's my bad imitation of Terry Funk. So anyway.
Oh, I love it.
It was great. It was as good as Mick Foley's.
Yeah,
Anyway.
Mick does not do a good Terry Funk.
No, I think if anybody's going to do, if you're going to do the best one that you can always do with the imitations of, if you will, would be Dusty Rhodes, if you will. But we're not talking about Dusty Rhodes. So Terry Funk.
I don't know. I was going to say, I think Bruce Pritchard's Jerry Jarrett's one of the best impersonations.
Well, there you go. That would be a good one too.
That's a good one.
But Terry Funk, he retired more times than I've had hot dinners, and but eventually he finally did, and I think it was well earned. So what? Of course, another thing I want to talk about Terry. Then another article in one of the magazines I was getting from Wrestler and Inside Wrestling was it talked about there was a particular tournament in Japan. And guess who Terry had to face at one point? Dory. Went an hour draw where these two just went at it with each other for at least an hour. And it was, you see them literally both kneeling in the ring, looking at each other. It's like, what else can we do to each other?
Yeah.
Pretty much is what they looked at. Yeah, but you could tell they had the crowd. I'd love to be able to see that match, but some of that Japan stuff is hard to come by with good quality footage. Like some of the Terry Funk and Abdullah the Butcher stuff is really, really grainy, not the best video quality. And plus you got the just the rapid fire Japanese commentary, which is kind of comical, especially when you see the blood coming out. You get that kind of stuff. But so that's always kind of funny. But I think if you don't have Terry Funk, you don't get Bray Wyatt, or at least not the kind of Bray Wyatt that we would eventually get. Yeah, it was partly influenced by Waylon Mercy, but I think there's still a lot of Terry Funk that comes to the table for Bray Wyatt.
Yeah, definitely. From hearing some of the stories that y'all have told and some of the other stories that I've been reading about online, that the way Bray liked to work was definitely heavily influenced by Terry Funk.
Yeah.
Had to.
I think I only ever saw Bray once live, and it was at a SmackDown taping here in Birmingham. And this was him as the Fiend. So that was a pretty wild entrance to see. I will admit that. And the match I saw him, he was doing some kind of angle with him and Daniel Bryan, where I think he came out from underneath the ring or something, and he pulled Daniel Bryan into the ring, and then all of a sudden you start seeing like hair flying all over the place. We were like, my wrestling buddy and I were looking at each other. What did we just see? We weren't at ringside for this one. We were up a little bit for this one, so we couldn't get a good bird's eye view of this one. But that was a weird thing to see. And then the Fiend comes back for the dark main event, and he takes on the Miz, and it's like, I think 1 or 2 minutes and the match was over. It was a very quick match. But I think that was the only time I ever saw Bray Wyatt live. I think he probably could have had a better match with Taker at WrestleMania had he not gotten injured during the match, because I think he blew his ankle out or his knee, or he did something. And I know they had to cut the match short because of that. But I think by that point, Taker was pretty much gone. There was not much. He wasn't moving very well anyway. So, it's a shame we didn't get Taker more in his prime against Bray Wyatt. I think that would have been really cool. But yeah, I can't say I was a very huge fan of the whole Firefly Funhouse. I thought that was just a little too creepy at times. It was just a little too weird for me, but I think I eventually got it. It took me a little while, but I eventually got it. I don't know where they really wanted to go with that whole thing with Alexa Bliss, and then Uncle Howdy comes in. So I'm not really sure where all that was supposed to head to. We may never know. And it's a shame, especially now with Alexa Bliss being pregnant, we may or may not see her back in the ring again. Who knows? We'll see. But it was tough when we learned when Brody Lee passed away. That was very hard. That was a definite shock to the system. I was glad to see Eric Rowan at the thing last night at SmackDown, just from the clips I watched. So it was great to see him at least for that appearance. Now, whether or not he comes back to WWE full time, who knows? But we'll see. But yeah, two legends. One that earned his time to go, and one that definitely was taken too soon. So there you guys have it. What leave some thoughts and comments in the chats, in the comments below. What kind of stuff did you guys like about Terry Funk? What were some of your favorite Funk moments? What were some of your favorite Bray Wyatt moments? How do you feel they should have worked with Bray? These last few years is kind of up and down a little bit with his booking, but let me know what y'all thought about it. And it's just, I said this before at the beginning of the show. It's been wonderful to bring the North and South Rock and Metal Connection guys together with the 5 Count John the Music Nut, and just do something together. This has been an absolute blast, even though Roger didn't get to be in there as much. But we're thankful that he did get to come in here at the end. So, yeah, Roger, do you got any last parting thoughts before we shut this thing down?
No. Other than yeah, I needed to run away because somehow I became the muscle of my friend.
Rock and roll. He was doing some movement for some friends, so that's why he wasn't able to be on here full time. But anyway, for the brothers Carson, for Roger Serrera and the Great White North, for John the Music Nut, I am John Clauser, Johnny Metal, the Metal Dad. This has been my music corner of the world, the North and South Rock and Metal Connection, 5 Count, all rolled up into one. We'll see you soon. We promise. We'll be back a little quicker than you think. Peace out.
Subscribe and ring the bell.
That's right. Subscribe and ring the bell. We're here. Peace.
Forever.